Two friends whose dreams were never about war, guns, or medals. Their dream was the mountains. But they never knew the mountain they were about to climb was a mountain that pulls people in and never returns them. And today, their thrilling struggle begins on that deadly mountain. Two friends who once worked in the army had another dream in their hearts: to conquer mountains and peaks. One day, they quit their jobs to chase that dream. But they didn't know the mountain they were heading toward had a terrifyingly dark history. Anyone who went there never returned. People vanished as if they disappeared from the world. And today, I'm here with the story of such a thrilling adventure movie, North Face. The story begins by showing a terrifying mountain, Eiger. Located in Switzerland, this mountain is called the Mountain of Death because no one has ever managed to climb its north face. Whoever tried never came back. Two young climbers, Carl and Max, disappeared while attempting it. Even after massive search efforts, the government couldn't find them. Eventually, they were declared dead, and climbing from that side was completely banned. Years passed like this. Then came the year 1936. Since Germany was hosting the Olympics, all media outlets began spreading one major news. Whoever could climb the north face of the Eiger would be honored as an Olympic hero. After this announcement, people from different countries started gathering courage and attempting the Eiger again. The story shifts to Berlin, Germany, where reporters are discussing who could accomplish this impossible task. Among them sits a female reporter named Louise. She declares that only two people can do this: Toni Kurz and Andy Hinderstoisser, because Louise has known them since childhood. Together, they have conquered countless mountains. At first, no one believes Louise. But when she shows their old climbing records, everyone agrees. Louise is ordered to bring those two men immediately. And if she succeeds, she will get a promotion. Meanwhile, Toni and Andy are still working in the army. But their senior officer has punished them because they took leave and returned very late. The reason was simple. Apart from their job, they were secretly continuing their mountain climbing passion. One day, while returning home on leave, they find their old friend Louise waiting for them. Andy hugs her, but Toni stands still in surprise because Louise was once Toni's lover. When she left for the city to pursue her dream of becoming a reporter, their relationship fell apart. Seeing Louise after so many years, a nostalgic smile appears on Toni's face. In the evening, the three of them go to a party together. There, Louise tells them about the Eiger Challenge. If you can reach the summit of the North Face, your names will be printed on the front page, and you will become Olympic heroes. Hearing this, Andy becomes excited. Hearing Louise's words, Andy becomes very happy and immediately agrees. But Toni is the only one who refuses. He explains that he has heard many stories about the Eiger mountain. Many people climbed it but never returned, as if they simply vanished into thin air. According to Toni, taking such a huge risk just to become a newspaper hero has no meaning. Saying this, he leaves the meeting. After that, the two friends return to the army camp, but neither speaks to the other. Especially Andy is very angry with Toni because both of them love mountains. And for the first time, Toni refusing an expedition breaks Andy's heart. At night, seeing Andy upset, Toni becomes worried. After thinking about it the whole night, he decides in the morning he will go on the journey. So they go back to their senior officer to request leave again. But since they already took leave multiple times, the officer refuses. Left with no choice, both of them resign from their army jobs. After returning home, they quickly began gathering all the equipment: ropes, large hooks, ice cutting tools, and everything necessary. The only problem was money, because other than their bicycles, they had no way to travel to Switzerland, which was 700 kilometers away. So they decide they will cover the entire journey by bicycle. On the other hand, when Louisa's boss hears that Tony and Andy aren't going, he takes Louisa and sets out to find two other climbers, Eddie and Billy, on the way to Switzerland. They travel by train, so they reached within a few days and stay at a VIP hotel. Meanwhile, after a long bicycle journey, Tony and Andy finally reach the base of the Eiger mountain. There, they see many other climbers preparing to attempt the summit. The two set up a small camp and start planning. At night, they meet Eddie and Willie, and Louisa arrives to interview them. In the morning, Tony and Andy fix their route, hang their food supplies halfway up the mountain, and return to camp. Upon returning, they find Louisa and her boss there to interview them. Louisa is shocked to see them because she believed they wouldn't come. Louisa's boss invites Tony and Andy to dinner at the VIP hotel, and from there, their real expedition preparations begin.
After the two friends reached the VIP hotel with Louis, reporters surrounded them and began throwing questions: where they would stay, how they planned their route, what their strategy was. Andy and Tony clearly stated they had made their own map and they would follow that for their journey. Hearing this, many people in the room burst into laughter. According to them, these two young men would never reach the peak of Eiger. But Louis just looked at them quietly, because he knew these two friends had both strength and intelligence. After dinner, Andy and Tony returned to their camp. That very night, a terrible storm broke out, its force almost washing their entire camp away. Still, the two somehow managed to save it. Meanwhile, the reporters inside the hotel didn't hear anything about the storm because they were busy enjoying themselves. The next morning, the storm stopped, but light rain kept falling. Another night passed. That night, Tony took his favorite diary and went to the hotel to meet Louis. He said the journey would be extremely hard, and the chances of his returning were very low, so he handed over the diary to Louis. Hearing Tony's words, tears filled Louis's eyes. He forgot all anger and resentment and hugged Tony tightly. He requested, "Keep this diary safe, but you will come back." Tony didn't answer. He quietly returned to the camp, and that same night, he and Andy set off on their journey. It was a full moon night, so walking at night was no problem. Seeing Andy and Tony move ahead, Addie and Billy began climbing behind them. By morning, the two friends reached the spot where they had hung their food bag. Then they started setting hooks on the rock. But while placing the hooks, some stones rolled down and hit one of the boys climbing behind. Addie and Billy complained, but Andy and Tony explained this path was dangerous, it would be safer to take another route. Still, they refused to listen because they knew following these two friends increased their chances of reaching the summit. Meanwhile, the reporters at the hotel learned that two teams had begun their climb, so they went to a place from which they could watch everything through telescopes and record it with their cameras. Time passed. Eventually, Andy and Tony reached a point where the mountain became completely vertical. Climbing straight up was impossible, so they used ropes to move sideways and climb. Since they were experienced, they did it easily. But the two boys behind got terrified. Seeing this, Andy and Tony softened up. They helped both of them and continued climbing together. As they moved on, night fell, so they used ropes to create a small resting spot on the face of the mountain, lit a fire, and prepared to spend the night there. Meanwhile, the reporters at the hotel again gathered for a grand dinner and started arguing over who would be the first to reach the mountaintop and broadcast the news.
You'll see, right at the beginning, Louis can't find Tony and Andy, so he starts shouting loudly. But there's a fierce snowstorm all around, and because of that, his voice doesn't travel far.
Still, Louis doesn't give up. He keeps calling out again and again. After a while, Tony, who was hanging on the side of a distant mountain wall, hears the voice. He shouts back, "We are dropping down very quickly." But the situation was anything but simple. By this point, all four of their bodies were almost numb. The extreme cold had turned their faces black. Their hands were barely working. Still, Tony encouraged everyone, and slowly, they kept moving. Eventually, they reached the place where the mountain slope became almost vertical. Exactly the same spot where they had used a rope and hook to climb up the other side earlier. Now they needed to do the reverse. But the problem was, the hook was still there, but the rope was not. Because they had taken the rope off after climbing up. Standing in front of such a huge problem, Andy couldn't control himself. He started crying. Seeing this, Tony came up with a new plan. He attached another hook to the mountain wall, and with the help of a long rope he had, he first lowered Andy down. Andy tied that rope to another hook on the opposite side. Everything was going fine. Until the time came to lower Billy. Because Billy was extremely sick, his body had no strength left. Lowering him down was like lowering a heavy, lifeless weight, very difficult. And while Andy and Tony were trying their best, suddenly a huge block of ice rolled down from above. It came straight toward Andy. Tony screamed at him to move aside, but Andy couldn't move fast because he was tied to the hook. The block of ice crashed right onto him. Andy slipped and fell, hanging from the rope. Meanwhile, Billy's friend Eddie hit his head on a rock and died then and there. Up above, Tony desperately held onto the rope. Billy and Andy were both hanging below. Andy had fainted from the impact of the ice. Tony kept shouting at him to wake up because Billy was already unconscious. If Andy didn't wake up, Tony couldn't do anything alone. Thankfully, Andy regained consciousness. But the next moment brought a new problem. The hook they were hanging from was slowly coming loose. Tony tried hammering it back in again and again, but because of the cold and weakness, nothing was working right. Hanging below, Andy understood everything. If they could save this one hook, Tony would survive. Then he made an unimaginable decision. He took out a sharp tool from his pocket and began cutting his own rope. Tony screamed at him to stop, but Andy didn't stop. He cut the rope and fell down, dying instantly. Tony broke down. He burst into tears. So much was happening, his friends were dying one by one, and he couldn't do anything. He tried to pack his things, but his hands were so frozen that even his backpack slipped away. It was clear there was no way to survive the cold anymore. Finally, he shouted for help. Louis heard the scream from far away and sent a rescue team. The rescue team came, but Tony was in such a dangerous spot that reaching him was nearly impossible. When evening came, they decided to return. Tony screamed, begging them to stay. "I don't want to die here." But the storm was so strong that they couldn't stay. Night fell. Tony spent the entire night standing on a tiny corner of the mountain. There wasn't even a space to sit. Lois, worried sick, went to the station and tried finding Tony using a torch. Tony saw everything, but couldn't respond. His body had no strength left. In the morning, the rescue team tried again. They planned that Tony would drop his rope down. They would tie a thick rope to it. Tony cut his rope in two and dropped it. The rescue team tied a thick rope, but it was too short, so they joined another rope to it, leaving a knot in the middle. Tony pulled the thick rope up and started descending, but the knot in the rope got stuck in the hook. Tony had no strength left to free it. He hung there. Louis tried to motivate him, climbed a little higher, shouted his name, but Tony was so weak that he couldn't even move his hands or feet. And in the end, Tony died while hanging there. Louis screamed and cried because Tony had loved him, yet Louis had once left him for his journalism career. And on this very assignment Louis sent him to, Tony met his death. He blamed himself. He returned to the city, quit his job as a reporter, and became a photographer. In the end, it is revealed that in 1938, German-Austrian climbers reached the summit of Mount Eiger using the map created by Tony and Andy.